is Kristianna Marjanovic, your Second Chance Queen, and on tonight's episode of the Second Chance Queen podcast, we are featuring a guest that is not at all involved with the pageant community. She's someone from my local community who I have found awe-inspiring. Last year, we met at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Out of the Darkness Walk. She joins my team for Portico Cares in my community in our area, and she is an amazingly inspiring woman that I can't wait to give a platform to share her voice today. Her name is Sue Payne. Sue Payne is a member of the board of directors for Dysphonia International. She serves as the area contact leader for Fort Myers, Florida, and is a member of the development committee. Sue was born in central Illinois and grew up on her family farm, and despite having lived away from there for decades, she retains all that is best in Midwest kindness and congeniality. With a background in education, community health, and fitness, and 2 degrees from Illinois State University, Sue held some impactful jobs with the city of Bloomington working on drug abuse prevention programs and gang violence reduction programs. In addition, she wrote a violence prevention curriculum that was implemented in the local school district. She also created a wellness program for the employees of the city of Bloomington. When Sue's wife, Carrie Darlington, had an opportunity with State Farm Insurance in Alabama, they relocated there, where Sue also went to work for State Farm, managing a group of adjusters. Sue found in her 13 years with State Farm that she loved working with her team, coaching them through the difficult task of helping people who had auto accidents and taking on training and consulting responsibilities. On July 19th, 2017, Sue woke up with a voice that wasn't right and got worse. While she was initially diagnosed with strep throat and laryngitis, when she followed up with a neurologist, muscle tension dystonia was diagnosed. After a month of speech therapy didn't help her voice, Sue sought out the opinion of another otolaryngologist who diagnosed AB spasmodic dysphonia. Sue has also been identified as having cervical dystonia and spasmodic dysphonia. Initially referred to Vanderbilt University Hospital, Sue found the 90-minute drive to be onerous, and she ended up at Emory University Hospital, where she had many attempts at treatment with Botox and fillers. These treatments did not give the improvement hoped for, so Sue has stopped them, though she keeps her options open. When she began to have voice issues, her inability to use her voice effectively at work, particularly on the telephone, meant going on short-term disability and long-term disability, and now Social Security disability. Sue's wife, Carrie, has been her rock throughout her voice journey, according to Sue. She has been with me every step of the way, attending doctor's appointments, supporting Sue through the tough times, and dealing with the unpredictability of a voice disorder, not knowing when your voice will be useful or frustrating in daily situations. Sue's parents, who still live on the family farm, and her extended family have been supportive through her journey as well. Sue also shared the place mental health services have had in her life. She experienced depression after her voice change and found counseling and grief therapy helped her cope with what became her new normal. She states, "I won't let my voice define who I am." One thing Sue pointed out as problematic was when people comment about her voice quality. She feels it minimizes the struggle that's at the heart of life with a voice disorder. Sue is pleased to have her strengths and skills used to support the goals of Dysphonia International as an area contact leader, a member of the development committee, a Walk for Talk event organizer, and as a member of the board of directors. She is also very proud of the work to support the education, awareness, and research functions of the organization. Moving forward, Sue feels purpose is something that we all need, and Dysphonia International is one of her purposes. Please join me in welcoming Sue Payne. I would love to start by you telling the listeners in your own words what your big second chance is and introduce yourself a little bit for us.
Sure. Well, again, thank you, Kristianna, for allowing me to be on your podcast. I think it's cool. And I guess it kind of is apparent what my second chance is just by the sound of my voice. I have what's called spasmodic dysphonia, or also known as laryngeal dystonia. Dysphonia is or SD, call it, is a neurological disorder that happens. There's no known cause. There's no known cure. There's some treatments are in the works, but we're trying to find more options. And it just, I'm unique in that I just woke up sounding like this back in 2017. As a matter of fact, 4 days ago, 2017, I woke up and had kind of a scratchy voice and really didn't think anything about it. And it was my dad's birthday weekend, and we were going to North Carolina. Went and picked them up. They flew from Illinois, picked them up at the airport, and we went on. And originally, I was first diagnosed with strep throat. So antibiotics, those sorts of things, not any better. And I came back, and at that point, I lived in Atlanta. And at that point, I went to ear, nose, and throat, or an ENT, and he diagnosed me with what they call muscle tension dysphonia. And it's basically where your muscles in your neck are fighting vowels and words appropriately. So I went to speech therapy. I wasn't really getting any better, and I was finally referred to a specialist in Vanderbilt. And that's when I was diagnosed with abductor spasmodic dysphonia. Adductor spasmodic dysphonia, muscle tension dysphonia, which that's why my vocal cords will either has them open and you can hear air, or they close shut and it cuts off the vowels. And so it's kind of my second chance has kind of been to reinvent myself as to who I am, what I am, and how I fit this world. Because when I lost my voice, I was a team manager at State Farm Insurance, and I went on short-term disability at first because the more stressed I am, the worse my voice gets. And working in auto claims is a little stressful.
I can imagine that.
And so after about 6 months, I went on long-term disability, which I'm on, as well as Social Security disability, and was severed from the company. So at that point, it's like, who am I? And I really had a hard time with my mental and emotional health at that point. But thankfully, I found an international organization called Dysphonia International, and they are an incredible organization. It's a volunteer organization, and we solicit donations, and we provide resources to people who have SD. We give educational things. We have support group meetings. I'm so honored to be asked to be a part of the board. So through this organization, I've actually found my voice again. So it's life takes you around in crazy ways.
Absolutely does. And the intro to this episode, I kind of gave some of your backstory. I love hearing it in your own words, and something that I think people don't realize, and something that you've experienced firsthand, is how much of our career and our jobs we attribute our identity to. So going through that after, being diagnosed and all of those issues, I can absolutely imagine the toll that took on your sense of identity. But I love what you just said about finding your voice through an organization. That's a really admirable thing. And I have to say, one of the things that I love about you as a human, just from, meeting you at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention walk and being neighbors, was the fact that it takes a really special type of person to go through something and turn it into a catalyst for changing other people's lives, even when you're in the throes. So I really commend you for doing that and bringing awareness to this, because it's something that a lot of people, including myself, had no idea was out there.
Right. And I think that is, and if I really struggled, I was very successful. Had as a team manager, I supervised 13 individuals, and I loved coaching and training and developing them. And even those customers that we had that were really upset, I still enjoyed conversation. And or somebody once said I could sell ice to an Eskimo because I've always been able to talk to people. And when I realized that I was really fighting some depression, that I needed to find help. And I think that we have to be okay with saying we need help. Our mental health is important. And I was lucky to find a counselor that helped me work through that grief counseling aspect, because a part of me died and a new part of me was reborn, which, because when you can't talk, it's the little things. I can't just pick up the phone because the phone is our nemesis. I text a lot. I can't pick up my phone and say, happy birthday, Dad. We have to FaceTime. So it's those little things that we as the society just don't think about. And then it was during COVID. I kind of have a scratchy and I have to clear my voice all the time. So people thought I was sick, and whew, that was a mess.
I'm sure the masks added another layer of frustration to your situation as well, because I'm sure a lot of people rely on reading your lips sometimes because,
Mm-hmm.
you're hearing the audio, and on bad days, they're probably using both of them to communicate with you. So did you find a lot of difficulty when you were having to wear a mask?
Yes, totally. And Dysphonia International created masks that actually said, I'm not sick, I have a voice disorder. Or bear with me, I have a voice disorder. So, but, bless our hearts, people tend to not read very well. So it was like, just look at my mask and you'll see that I can't talk. But there was, I also put on my notes, it was really bad. I do a text to speak app. Sometimes use, I have no voice, or I have a notes page that says I have a voice disorder, and here's my phone number, here's my email, because again, those little things are what you just tend to not think about.
That's something that I really don't think people realize, is just how frustrating that is to lose that form of communication. So I
Mm-hmm.
think bringing awareness to that is really important. But I love that you found alternatives and you're able to still power through. What do you think gives you, because you're such a positive person now. I'm sure you may not have always been that way. I'm sure there was lots of frustration, but what do you think lends to your positivity now and how you're able to handle it? Is there something that you could say really helped you get to that place?
Yeah, I mean, and we all go through that ebbs and flows, bad days, hard days. About a month, I told lost my voice again, so I was like, ugh, it gets hard, it gets very frustrating. But I think that what has saved me is finding Dysphonia International, and I know that sounds kind of corny, but nothing is more powerful than to be able to get on a support group call and people sound exactly like I do. Some are better, some are worse, but we all get it. And so that support that I get from my friends is critical. I think as far as the positive, there's no other option. I have to, and that's part of getting myself back, is I love helping people. I was a substance abuse and violence prevention teacher. So my identity revolves around helping. And so if I can make somebody else's world just a little bit better, or maybe they can understand a little bit better what they're going to go through, or that I'm there for them, it's awesome.
I love that. And I relate to that side of you because I'm very much the same type of person. It's why we met through, the
Exactly.
suicide prevention walk, and it's what led me to start this podcast was giving other people a voice, ironically. So right now definitely feels like a full circle moment, if I'm being honest, but I love that so much of your identity has been refound in the organization that you're working with. And would you say that having this condition is something that, I mean, I feel like this is going to be an obvious answer, but I want to hear it in your words. Do you think it's something that affected your confidence and how you felt about yourself? And is that something that you still battle with, or are you at a place now where you've kind of accepted it and you're okay?
I'd say both, actually. Yes, for sure. Looking for that self identity. Being at my home, my family, my wife create a very safe space here. Out there in the real world, it's very difficult and it's very easy to get cut down quickly. I'm not as social as I used to be. I've not I've lost friends. It's harder to establish friendships and meaningful friendships because sometimes I just can't do what other people want to do. Going out for at dinner and that sort of thing, especially in a loud environment, kind of because it's just too hard. Or Carrie, wife, she'll order for me because a waiter, waitress in a restaurant can't hear me, or they can't understand what I'm saying. So that can make people feel uncomfortable, which then in turn makes me feel uncomfortable. So yeah, it's a constant battle.
I can appreciate and definitely understand that. I think something that's very ironic, and maybe it's just the person that I am, but when we originally met at the walk, it took you pointing out that you had a voice condition for me to realize that you had a voice condition. I didn't register that there was anything different about you, whether that was just me being, me, or if maybe you were having a better day on those days.
Right.
That's entirely possible. What is the biggest piece of advice that you'd give to someone like myself, or different than myself, I guess, that does notice right away? Is there something you would like to give to someone to maybe help bridge that, or to explain to people to help make you and others in your position more comfortable?
And I guess too, I have relatively good days, and then I also have had days of voice, and so it does make it difficult for people to pick it up sometimes. And I think in those bad day times, just patience. What's hard for me is when I am those bad speaking days and people trying in kindness of their heart, they're trying to fill in my words. And it's like, no, that's not what I'm going to say, or no, that's not what I'm thinking. It's like, just take a minute and I'll figure it out, because my brain has to find the right word that I can say. So it's that, sometimes it makes it seem like I'm searching for a word when it's just me trying to figure out how to say that word. So yeah, it's patience and grace.
I think in general, this world needs more patience and grace, but that's something that everybody, I think, could benefit from hearing. Patience and grace. But I really like that. And I wouldn't have even thought, and that's why I love doing these interviews, of, people maybe trying to predict what you're going to say to try and help, not realizing how that's silencing the little voice that you do have. And, you know, maybe dehumanizing isn't the right word, but in that realm of feelings where you want to use your darn voice whether it's a good day or bad day. So I could understand that kind of frustration.
It's never done in ill will. It's truly people wanting to help. And, Carrie is sometimes caught in bad light because, like, for example, making a phone call to a doctor. Sometimes I can manage and it's not too bad. Other times I'm like, I need you to come and help me and make this phone call. So I know the tiptoeing that happens, and that's us learning.
Yeah. Speaking of Carrie, she's lovely. We
Yeah.
love Carrie. Do you think that this obviously, she's been by your side, she's been a huge support system. Carrie's a phenomenal person. But do you have any recommendations for someone who's experiencing your diagnosis for their partner, maybe? Because I'm sure it's a whole learning curve for them as well and may change the relationship dynamics a little bit too.
Yes, she has been incredible through this. End of this month will be our 30 years. So that kind of sums that up. And it can be very difficult. I'll never forget the day of the diagnosis. And it was like, this is, ever, never gonna be normal again. And we both kind of looked at each other like, what the hell? What does this, why, what does this mean? And really just kind of being there for each other, and laughing at the same time, pulling that. And I was on voice rest for about 3 weeks to a month. I could only text. We were sitting on the couch and I text Carrie a question and she texts me back and I'm like, you can talk. But I also have friends that have been in the dating world that have really struggled with somebody finding that partner because it is rough. As a matter of fact, it's so ironic that you're bringing this up because we're going to start a support group. And these support groups are across the country and international that for partners to be able to get support because it is different. It's always wondering, is she going to have a voice today? Is it going to get worse? What happens if I go for, another month? I have virtually no voice. It's not only financially struggle, but the emotional part because she supports me so much doing these podcasts. It's also very hard for her to hear me struggled through them. So it's a double-edged sword, actually. But yeah, that support system is critical.
And I love that you both have had each other through this process, because I think having a partner to go through something like this is an added strength that you got to experience. And like you said, some people that are in the dating world are not getting to experience that. But I love that. And I love supportive partners around here. My husband is the same way as Carrie. And we deal with things with humor too. So when you
Yeah.
said kind of laughing through things, I could guarantee you that if I was diagnosed with something like this, the first thing my husband would probably do is ask me if we were going to go out for karaoke, because that is the type of marriage that we have. So at least we know that we will not find Carrie and Sue on a karaoke date. But
or
I think that, but I love that you guys have built that, rapport and have that type of relationship where you can make light of things. And I think that's a really important healing mechanism that people don't utilize.
well, and I've always said that my voice is not life threatening, it's life altering. But in 2022, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So in December of 21, I was scheduled to have major back surgery, a spinal fusion from lumbar 2 to L5. And 2 days before surgery, I was told I had cancer. So it's like thrown into, I'm dealing with a waist disorder, I'm dealing with back issues, and then throw breast cancer on top of it. So in reality, my voice disorder has helped me prepare and go through other things. I'm good. I made it through, and it put it into perspective because breast cancer is life threatening. My voice sounds tomorrow I'll probably have a really rough speaking day, but it's okay because it's not impacting my life. So, it's perspective on things. It doesn't diminish it, and it still really sucks at times, but it's all good.
Well, I had no idea about your cancer side to that story. So thank you for sharing that. I think it definitely does give an added side of perspective that's much needed. And I'm so glad that you were able to beat that and that you're here. You
Yeah.
are definitely a survivor and a warrior to the fullest. I think the universe has thrown some battles at you, and it should hopefully be smooth sailing until the very end. You've done your hard stuff now.
Yeah. Check.
I would ask what your catalyst to becoming resilient is, but I think we've figured that out.
Yeah.
So I would like to ask instead, what kind of piece of advice or key would you give to somebody that's going through some of those difficult things to bouncing back with that resilience? Was there a specific tool, maybe, whether it was grief counseling or whatever that looked like? What did you find really helped you the most through the process?
It was that grief counseling. It was finding Dysphonia International, finding my people, my posse, because nothing's worse than feeling alone and isolated. And by finding that support has been incredible and has helped me. It's when I'm at my low point, they're there to lift me. And I try and that for them. When they're at their low point, I try and lift them. And we have cool programs in place. For example, if somebody here in Fort Myers is recently diagnosed with a voice disorder and they go to our website and they type in they want to speak to somebody in that area, then they will see my email address and my coordinator sends an email to that person and to me, and we start a mentoring relationship. And that's across the country that we have that in place. And so, by being there for others, we end up helping each other through that relationship. And ironically, there was in Cape Coral that we have been communicating back and forth, and I was fearful that my voice was getting worse, so she gave me her laryngologist to contact. So it's definitely give and take, and it just keeps the support going because we can't give up. We have to raise more money to find research grants and opportunities to find other solutions than Botox, because Botox is really the only treatment for symptoms. And it's not like the eyebrows or cheeks or wrinkles. It's Botox, promise. But
Yeah.
so we can't give up. There's something out there.
Yeah. There's got to be something out there. Well, I love that it's Dysphonia International, correct?
Yes.
That's how you say it, making sure I'm saying it right.
Yes.
I love that Dysphonia International has become such a huge part of your life, and congratulations as well for being on the board of directors. I know that's a semi-recent development. I remember seeing a post about it since we met.
Right.
So, do you have any specific goals for your time with Dysphonia International being on the board? Is there something in particular you'd really like to see happen during that time?
Yeah. We're always looking for, like I said, those research opportunities. And we have a really fun, which hopefully I can get you involved in this year. It's called Walk for Talk. And it's a walk in the community, in our little community, that's all about awareness. And it happens in October. This year it's October 18th, that long weekend, but the whole month of October we kind of highlight Walk for Talk. And during that time, we all list it for donations, and we have an anonymous donor that matches dollar for dollar raised. The more money we can raise, the more research we can do. And we have some grants that are funded and some research projects. So that's my passion, is to be the voice for Walk for Talk and DI, because that's what we have to do. There's, like I said, there's no other option, and it's tons of fun. We put videos up of, last year there was some walks in London and Ireland and across the United States, and it's so much fun. Dogs will have bandanas on, and so it's just a great celebration of awareness, and that's what's with the board and with the DI.
I love that. Count
Awesome.
me in. I will be walking with you.
Cool. And it's really cool because we're up at the amenity center, and it's just a fun time. Hopefully we'll have some other people in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, that have face disorders and come up and speak. And yeah, it's just everybody sounds a little bit different. It's very interesting because since I have what they call mixed, it's very different sounding. But if somebody has adductor spasmodic dysphonia, their Botox injections most makes them somewhat normal for about 3 months, and then they have to continue to get those injections. But we're all totally different, and that's one of the hard parts about this disorder.
Now, you said it's neurological. So, do you experience any other neurological symptoms, or is it strictly your voice?
I actually have what's called cervical dystonia as well, and that's there's many forms of dystonia, of writer's cramp or they'll call it writer's cramp, where their hands will cramp their writing. That can be a form of dystonia. Blepharospasms is when people's eyes will shut. That too is a type of dystonia for me. I have it in my neck and down my front. Last Thursday, a week ago, I had 300 units of Botox put into my neck and sternomastoid muscle to reduce spasming. But that's why my head kind of tilts to the side, because it's constantly pulling. So that's other form of dystonia and a neurological disorder. Some people will have where their heads will be totally to the side, or they'll be all the way to the back. So there's some really, really strong people out there. So mine isn't too bad. I get headaches and the pulling, but I'm lucky that the Botox helps me. And they're still trying to figure out where this is happening. They're doing now a lot of brain mapping and with MRIs to try and figure out where dystonia comes from. And they think it's within the basal ganglia part of the brain. So, yeah, it's amazing.
I would never imagine that a voice disorder would come from a neurological condition. It's crazy sometimes how the body works.
Yeah.
It's
It's like,
mind-blowing.
you know how sometimes you get like a twitch in maybe a muscle in your muscle, or your arm is just kind of twitching. Well, that's kind of the same idea, is that my vocal cords are physically fine. It's that the messages are messed up and too many, or get crumbled. So physically, there's nothing wrong. It's just those waves are misfiring, if you will. It's very
You have a
fascinating.
bad Wi-Fi connection.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's like,
If somebody's not getting your explanation sometime, you just tell them, you know what, just imagine having bad Wi-Fi. That's what it is. The simple version.
that's exactly it. The
But it's
freezing motion.
that's that's for somebody that's not familiar with how the brain works. That's the
Totally.
instant, the technological in me is like, that makes sense. It makes it easy to kind of understand
Yeah.
how neurologically it ties in. Because you would think it would be like a vocal cord, almost like a paralysis where they were not functioning. You don't realize that it's like a signal,
Yeah, exactly.
type of thing. So, well, I love that you also are raising awareness to the differences,
Yes.
because a lot of times you see with health conditions and health issues, a lot of the symptoms group together and they look very similar in a lot of people. And then you do have those instances where they're very different, and you can have two people that, are opposite kind of ends of the spectrum. I know how that kind of is because I have fibromyalgia, and my one of my best friends actually has it as well, and our symptoms are very different, and you would not know because they're so, different. So it's interesting how health issues can kind of work like that. And I think it's important that you raise awareness so that people understand the spectrum. A lot of people think too black and white, but I think
Yes.
the spectrum is important for them to see and understand.
Well, and similar to fibromyalgia, all physicians or doctors know about it. I mean, they know, but they don't know how to diagnose it. It's very similar. Most people think I just have laryngitis. They don't know it's so much more than that. I'm sure with fibromyalgia, just are like, oh, whatever. You're fine. That sort of thing. So it's the discounting, it's the discrediting, and it's up to us to educate people, and all about awareness.
I guess I probably should talk more about that. Sometimes I don't even, I'm so used to living with it that
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about it as much and I don't mention it a lot. And there's people that know me for years and don't realize that I have it. And then I'll have, a flare up where I'm
Mm-hmm.
really bad. And they're like, "What's going on with you?" And I'm like, "I have fibromyalgia." And they're like, "What's that? You never told me about that." And I'm like, it's just such a normal part of, how I live, and the pain is kind of constant. So it's just interesting. But I think you're right, when you have these types of things, having awareness, and also you do see it get minimalized a
Yes,
lot. And
yes.
that does take a toll on your mental health. I know with my condition, it took months and months and
Mm-hmm.
months and hospital visits and all sorts of testing to get diagnosed. And I was extremely young. I was diagnosed at 17, which is very, very, very rare. Um, and I had so many doctors start to tell me, "We don't know what's wrong. You're fine. It's probably in your head."
Yes.
And that type of thing is so hurtful for people that are going through those types of situations. Did you ever really have any of those experiences, or have anybody kind of have that reaction where they minimize what you're going through?
No. I mean, yes, especially with being on disability, because physically, you look at me out in the neighborhood, I'm walking my dog, I'm at the gym, it doesn't really appear that I'm disabled, which vice disorders are considered a disability, and they don't know what's going on inside of me until maybe they hear me speak, or I'm in a I'm having a bad, and then it's like, oh, wow, this is bad, that sort of thing. Another thing is that originally they thought spasmodic dysphonia was psychosomatic, so that plays into it, and that it is all in our head. And so that almost like a ish type thing, which is very difficult to hear. I've never been accused of that, because trust me, no one ever want to have a needle go through your larynx. Yeah, it's bad to try and talk normal. So yeah, it's very psychological.
It's
A weird thing is in your head,
absolutely.
like, when you talk to yourself and you
Hmm.
hear your voice in your head. Well, in my head, I sound normal. I don't have spasms. So that kind of messes with me anyway. You open out and it's like, oh, that's not normal.
You know, wow. I would never have thought of the impact on your mental health
Yeah,
in hearing yourself. And then, I mean, that's like if you looked in the mirror and saw someone that you weren't expecting to see. I can imagine, like, with me, over time, I've put on weight because of fibromyalgia and other health conditions that I have. And so sometimes I look in the mirror
mm-hmm.
and I'm so a little caught off guard because I
Right.
look much different than I used to. So I never really would have thought of your voice and that effect. Gotta be very challenging. Is there anything that you would say took the hardest toll on you mentally? Because obviously we met through a mental health organization, and I
Right.
know you've said that it had, repercussions for you and really affected you. What would you say was the hardest thing for you to cope with your mental health, with this situation?
I really think the word chronic was the hardest thing I had around. That really isn't gonna be better for now until it changes, until I help find that cure. So that word, remember I saw it written chronic, blah, 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 and it was like, oh, that just kind of put it in another light. I guess, for me. So that's tough. And you kind of get by me, but I've also learned to let that work through it, that I can't not, I have to be okay with not always being the strong, happy person. I've got to be okay with letting those emotions go and those feelings and kind of recognizing and working through it. But I would say that word is the hardest for me to deal with.
Ooh, that it almost makes me emotional because with fibromyalgia, there's a lot of kind of comorbidities, and one of them for me is chronic fatigue syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
ironically. And that chronic word is a terrible, it really does. I don't think people understand when there's no fix, there's no known cure, and
There's
it's
no.
just you're going to be living with this. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's especially in like chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia and like dysphonia, there's no cure, there's no fix. And I know that was very hard for me to swallow as well, was that I wasn't going to wake up one day and it's going to be gone and it's going to be back to normal. Was that something that you struggle with too, or do you still sometimes have hope or forget and hope that one day you'll wake up and it'll be, you know, like Wi-Fi connection restored?
I know it won't, so I don't let myself go there. But what kind of I won't give up looking for that cure, and Carrie and I have decided that we will continue to support Dysphonia International and leave a financial gift upon our death to continue the legacy of research and finding a cure. But I think that with that, what really, and you may feel identify, like if I'm in a pretty good place today, people will say, oh, you don't sound that bad.
Yep.
I don't, again, it's not for malice. It's not, it's just them trying to make me feel better. In reality, it's like, oh, it makes me feel like um, those days I had, they don't say, oh man, you sound like crap today. I don't know. And
Thank God.
it's probably me being very sensitive, but it's that diminishing.
Yeah, completely kind of understand that. And when you're adjusting to a new normal and when your normal doesn't look like everyone else's, and then you hear a phrase like, oh, you sound normal or you look normal,
Mm-hmm.
it's this jar that I don't think people understand. It's not a compliment. It may be intended that way, but it just doesn't feel like a compliment
Right.
should feel when you hear those. So I relate to that 100%. And I think that bringing awareness to dysphonia and to these conditions like this that are, more invisible, um, is really important because people don't, and unless they know about it and they know what it entails, they don't know how to react.
Right.
So I never thought about the awareness portion in terms of teaching people how to react or,
Mm-hmm.
what they need to do to understand to make them aware of how certain phrases impact people. So, is there any sort of special resources that Dysphonia International has where if people want to learn maybe like phrases to avoid to saying to somebody that has the condition? Because that could be a good resource.
I'll have to check because we're always looking for resource. Yeah, because this dysphonia international.org is the website, and there is a ton of information on there. I don't know if there's resources like that, but you can hear different voices. If you have an aunt or an uncle somewhere that voice, and kind of funny. It's like you can hear the different, there's doctor referrals, there's resources, there's how you can protect yourself at your job because it is an ADA accreditation, and there's tons of resources, but that's a great thought on some of those things to avoid or to open that dialogue with somebody, especially with the partners conversation. That's
Yes.
great.
That's what I was thinking. Like a support person or partners or family, like
Mm-hmm.
your loved one was just diagnosed with dysphonia. Here's what not to say to them, or something like that could be really helpful,
Yeah.
I think, because we're finding a common theme in this conversation of people meaning well, but it
Mm-hmm.
just not landing the way it should. So
Right.
that could be a great resource.
Exactly.
And even a campaign, Dysphonia International could do a campaign where it has people with dysphonia, different voices saying things that people have said to him or to them that maybe didn't feel great at that time. And it could be maybe an awareness campaign so that people understand how their words and those statements are having an impact on those people. Because and sometimes in those moments, I know I hear compliments that don't land like compliments, and sometimes I don't know how to react to those,
Right.
and I'll try to just avoid the discomfort because I don't want to make them feel bad. So maybe some sort of campaign so that people don't have to have that worry. Something that can be put out there saying, don't say this, would help in that situation. That
Right.
could be a good resource
Yeah.
for the
And,
community.
if you don't know, you don't know. I mean, true, as ironic as that sounds, it's like I fully believe, especially with my vice disorder, that people genuinely want to know and they want to help with the Walk for Talk campaign. Over the last, let's see, we started Walk for Talk in 2020, and I think my total, okay, here we go. I knew I had it written down. So from 2020 to 2024, so 5 years, I've raised a little over $33,000, which that's just from my friends, my family, people who want to help. So there are a lot of people out there that want to help. And so by saying, don't say, oh, you're having a good voice day, that I fully believe that they're trying to make me feel better because they obviously care about me because they're in my life. So,
Yeah.
but that little awareness piece can go a long way. That's great. That's good stuff.
Yay! I helped Dysphonia International. Mission accomplished.
In more ways than you know.
Well, thank you. I love supporting organizations and real people that have causes that need that platform and that awareness. I've always been very much an underdog person. So if
Mm-hmm.
I find a cause or an issue that needs that boost, I mean $33,000, that's incredible.
Yes.
I can't wait to see what we're able to add to that this year and what we're able to do with that, because the research could really be life changing. Is there anything that the interview hasn't touched on yet that you want to really drive home for people, or a message that you really want help amplifying?
No, this has been awesome. I think the support, obviously, Dysphonia International, those are the key because so many people really get in a dark, lonely place because it is lonely. It is very isolating, can be. So I think we've really done a good job about hitting the power of supporting each other. So Yeah.
There's a community that comes to my mind that I feel like would kind of relate to the struggles, and I don't know if there's a link between it or not, but has the voice disorder community had any connection bridges to the deaf community? That was kind of a question that I thought, because when I think of communication complications, one of the things that comes to mind with the lip reading is the hard of hearing community and how they, communicate. Are there any bridges between that or correlations or anything like that?
Kind of. And some people have said or asked me, well, are you going to learn sign language? And I do kind of use my own sign language, like especially if I'm having a bad voice day, I just use my hands in one way or other. But when they say or they ask, are you going to learn sign language? It's like, sure, I can, but are you going to learn it? So I can't use sign language if the other person isn't going to learn it back so we can communicate. But with that being said, every year, Dysphonia International has a symposium, international symposium. And not this past May, but the May before, there was a phone system there that can record phone calls. It was kind of, our theme was kind of a technology. And my dad has only 5% hearing. So he is basically deaf. He has a cochlear implant, but because of the symposium, we were able to connect him with the telephone to be able to get a phone that dictates his conversations. So there is some correlation, but not a direct link. But communication, if anything, it's that mindfulness. Because my dad goes through similar frustrations with being pretty much deaf, with being alone, being isolated, because if people aren't looking at him, he can't read their lips to communicate. Same thing with me. If you're not in this with me, you're probably not going to understand what I'm saying. So there are a lot of similarities with it.
That's kind of where mine went. And of course, I have always wanted to learn ASL. So I feel like that would be a really fun opportunity. This kind of makes me want to learn ASL again, because there's something that it's deeply frustrating to me as a human, the thought of and it almost makes me cry. I'm trying not to cry. The thought of being a human that is trying so hard to communicate and to not have the resources, or, to not be understood, that it breaks my heart. So I think that, number one, ASL should be way more commonly taught. I think that as a resource, that should be something that is like in school. Right now kids are learning Spanish and French. Why are they not learning ASL is
Right.
my question. But also, what tools can the future innovate that could benefit both the voice disorder and hard of hearing communities to kind of help you guys and also bridge the gaps in communication? That's something that I would love to see. And it has my kind of gears turning as what could change, and how could society adapt, and what things could be implemented to
Right.
be more inclusive in that way.
Yeah. And I think with, like I mentioned, my dad has a cochlear implant. So I'm sure you've seen people that have the magnet and
Mm-hmm.
the, hey,
Yep.
well, that's part of a kind of a deep brain stimulus type thing, DBS. Well, they're also doing that sort of thing for voice disorders, where they would go somewhere, I'm not even sure where, but into your brain, and then feed a electrode into your voice box or into your vocal folds for it to work correctly and not spasm. So because of the research and the hearing impaired and the enhancements in that, it will in tune and help us. So it's all interrelated. Very, very cool. And then there's also not only spasmodic dysphonia, but there's also stutterers that is impacted, picked on, made fun of. That sort of community too that we often don't talk about or empathize with when people stutter. And we could even be sometimes thought of to have a type of stutter. So it's that whole compassion piece that we have to be better at, accepting differences and celebrating those differences.
You remind me of one of my good friends who runs a project called the Compassionate Leadership Project that is all about being leaders in the world with compassion first and foremost. And you definitely remind me in that aspect of a compassionate leader. I think if I was going to define you, that would be one of the things I thought of. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that. For me is just people being more compassionate and inclusive in general.
Yeah.
One of my favorite comedians actually has a stutter. Drew Lynch he's been raising awareness for vocal cord injury because he has a stutter because of a vocal cord injury, and he's been a really popular comedian that in our household we love him to death. So but it's funny how people can have those types of situations happen and turn it into something amazing, like you've done with Dysphonia International, and many of the leaders in that organization have done, taken a personal struggle and turned it into a community-wide healing.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
For that, I think you all need huge accolades because that takes a lot.
Yeah, it's an amazing organization for sure. They saved me. They helped me find me again. So it's incredible.
And something that you've said tonight that I really want to highlight is the word grief, because so many people relate grief to only death.
Mm-hmm.
And grief is such an intense emotion that you can experience over loss of a voice, and struggling with identity. There's so many things that you can grieve while still being alive.
Yes.
So I think the power in your messaging there was really important and will hopefully help people that are on that side of things to understand that what they're feeling with isn't dramatic or, shouldn't be minimized, that it's real and it's powerful, and they have every right to feel that. So I think that's super important. Do you have any tips for anybody that's in the throes of that grief due to a diagnosis?
I think it's finding that your person, whoever that is, whether it's clergy, a counselor who specializes in grief therapy, going to that counselor, just not to, as you said, diminish those feelings, because it can be a very lonely space. Sometimes out of the sadness, we have to be able to find the good in it, because I believe that everything happens for a reason. And I don't know why some people have to go through the things they do, but I know having my voice disorder has given me opportunities that I never saw my world going to. So it's a blessing, and you have to look for those in that.
I love your outlook on the challenges that you've been through, and I think they will really save lives. So I'm so excited that you shared those messages and that we got to talk about this. It's something that, when I met you at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Out of the Darkness walk, we were able to meet and be neighbors and build that sense of community. And I love that it's come full circle. Well, now I'll get to walk for your cause.
Thanks.
And we can raise awareness for an incredible little known
little bitty
disorder that's out there. Not a lot of people realize it. They don't know, but it's making such a huge impact in the lives of those that have it. So I'm so excited, and I love supporting Dysphonia International. That's really important.
very cool.
The last question that I have, this is my super fun question, so I'm excited for this one, is other than myself, what famous person or person in your life, anybody that you could think of, would you honorate as a designatory second chance queen to add to my ranks, and why?
Can I have two?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I think my first one has to be Carrie, my wife, because she has gone through her own grief, as you mentioned, going to the suicide prevention. She lost her brother to suicide and has been able to help others manage that and has helped people grieve and has helped me beyond through life, breast cancer, back, all the plethora of things. So she's truly my queen. She's incredible. And another person that has been a huge mentor to me is also involved with Dysphonia International, and that's Mary Buffaro. And she is the kindest, sweetest woman I know that is so dedicated to all of us. And she is my SD sister. And I know that she reaches so many people with her compassion and instilling hope in others. And I think that's what we need in this world. So that's my two.
Carrie, welcome to the ranks. I'm so excited that she got to join this. It's an elite group of women.
There you
I
go.
can tell you that.
Thank you for being open and interested in talking about voice disorders. I know it's kind of outside of your but it means the world to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm truly touched and honored.
Appreciate you coming on, and it gave me an insight into the power of this podcast beyond just the pageantry realm and the impact. There's a lot of incredible women that I've met through pageantry, and they all have platforms and causes. But the root of this reminded me that there are humans that are not up on the stage in evening gowns that have these causes that they're passionate about as well. And you guys are just as important as us. Maybe a little less sparkly.
Yes.
We have, crystals and evening gowns and all that fun stuff, but no less important. I love the commonality and getting to relate to people. And honestly, this gave me, I always caption my clips that I release on social media so that people can read the captions. But I don't remember if all of the episodes are captioned or not. So this really inspired me as a podcast host to make my show more accessible as well for those that maybe to have the assistance to be able to read it, whether it's hard of hearing or voice disorders. I mean, you guys can hear fine, but making sure that your message is communicated clearly and those assistive kind of devices. So this was a good reminder for me as well. And I think anybody out there that's listening, that if there are small changes that you can make in your lives to make other people more comfortable, it's really important that we take those to be as inclusive as possible.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining myself and Sue on tonight's episode of the Second Chance Queen podcast, where we talked about voice disorders and Dysphonia International, which is an incredible organization to support those with voice disorders. Although this is not something that is super common that you hear of all the time, it does not diminish the importance. And I am so honored to be able to raise awareness for this organization and this cause so that more people in the world can feel not only seen, but heard. So thank you so much. Please check out the resources with Dysphonia International to learn more about the different voice disorders. If a loved one of yours is diagnosed, they have great resources. And also make sure to take care of your mental health if you are struggling through a recent diagnosis, whether it's voice disorders or beyond, to make sure that you are taking care of yourself, because you deserve to be seen, heard, and your feelings matter. So thank you so much to Sue for bringing this to light and bringing awareness to this very important cause. And we hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of the Second Chance Queen podcast. I'm Kristianna Marjanovic, your host of the Second Chance Queen podcast. And remember, you always have a second chance. You just have to be willing to take it.